The Prime Minister says the whole country stands with Liverpool after a car was driven into crowds during the city's Premier League victory parade. We are now all too aware of this awful story. 27 people in hospital, 4 including a child in a serious condition. We know a 53-year-old, quote, white British man has been arrested. Police say they released his ethnicity to counter online misinformation. In a moment, we'll speak with Will Geddes, security specialist. But first, let's get the latest live in Liverpool for us, our reporter Nick Ellerby. Nick.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ian. I'm on the street, actually, just by Water Street on Dale Street in the centre of Liverpool city centre, where the incident happened just after 6 p.m. yesterday. I mean, the latest sort of real news line out of Liverpool is the regional mayor, Steve Rotherham, saying that a car should not have been on this street at that time yesterday. It's estimated 1 million people were on the streets of Liverpool celebrating the Premier League trophy. Also, Ian, the King has just shared a message on social media. King Charles says, "My wife and I were deeply shocked and saddened to hear of the terrible events that took place in Liverpool on Monday. We know 27 people were taken to hospital, 2 of those seriously injured." The King says, "Our prayers and deepest sympathy are with all those who have been affected," and he has particular gratitude for the emergency services and the first responders. I mean, the scene here when I arrived at 7 o'clock yesterday, about an hour later, there were so many flashing lights. There were probably 7 or 8 ambulances. I saw fire crews, a fire engine, a huge number of police. Behind me there are still, well, the Water Street's still closed off. It's going to be closed off until at least tomorrow. I've been speaking to the street teams here. They told me they don't expect to reopen this street until at least tomorrow. We've seen forensic teams here on the street as well doing their investigations today. That's still ongoing. There's a mobile police station as well. I actually spoke to an eyewitness, a woman called Donna, who came to the Premier League parade from the Isle of Wight, travelled the length of the country here. Lots of people came from all over the place, all around the country, and also from further afield to celebrate Liverpool's trophy win yesterday. And I started asking Donna what she saw and heard when she was here on the street at that time, and here's what she told me.
We saw the ambulance was at the top with just its lights on, just precautionary, I suppose. The next minute we heard sirens and people screaming, shouting, "Run!" Me and my other half, Chris, we were holding hands anyway, so we literally just ran to the side street, and we heard banging. We didn't know what it was, and as we stopped we turned around and there was just people all over the car. But prior to that we were where that car had stopped. If we hadn't have run, then it could have been a different matter.
Did you see the state of any of the injured people, what kind of state they were in?
No, we just, as we went into that side street, we didn't go back because we could see the car and we just didn't want to see what was going on. That was enough.
I mean, shocking scenes literally here behind me on this street yesterday. Ian, other eyewitnesses report a man was thrown some 20 feet into the air as a black SUV ploughed into a number of spectators here. We know 27 people went to hospital, 4 of them children. The fire service yesterday in their update told us that when they arrived on the scene 4 minutes after being called, they found 4 people under a car. One of those was a child. So our thoughts and prayers, as the King said, with all those affected and their families. And as you mentioned, the police very quickly to get that information out. I mean, there was a lot of disinformation being spread online immediately in that aftermath, and I think they weren't thinking of possibly the bigger picture in terms of going forward, what that means for a possible future incident or investigation. What they were thinking was that they have to quell that disinformation as quickly as possible, and they've been quite upfront about that. We've also got another update at 3 p.m. actually, so I'll be making my way over there now to the police headquarters here in Liverpool, and I'll bring you any updates as soon as I get it, Ian.
Nick, thank you very much indeed. Nick Ellerby, there he is, right at the scene of where this horrific afternoon incident took place. It was, and you know, Nick just said, the social media images. You know, I would say don't. It just sounds futile to say this. Don't look it up because it isn't pleasant to see that, but it's there. And it forms part of the kind of new landscape of how news develops these days. We're not going to undo that aspect, but we'll go back to Nick if we get any more detail from him. We were hoping to speak to the Mayor of Liverpool, Steve Rotherham, but unfortunately he's been called into a meeting. As you can imagine, he's probably back-to-back speaking with the Home Secretary, the Prime Minister, etc., on the further details of this. But any news, we'll bring it to you here. Let's get a word from Will Geddes, security specialist. Afternoon to you, Will. It does seem pretty sure now this was not a terror attack. That was ruled out pretty quickly. But it doesn't mean to say that this incident is without very similar concerns that you would apply to a terror attack. How does a car in a closed-off city with snipers all over the place, as you would have for an event where 1 million people are going to turn up, manage to take a car and drive it through the labyrinthine back streets and cause this amount of chaos?
Yeah, no, good afternoon, Ian. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, certainly these events, these parades, festivities, even, for example, large concert halls or arenas, certainly since Manchester Arena bombing by Salman Abedi, there were many, many things to learn from that particular scenario. And that falls under this great banner of what they call protect duty, which legislation's trying to be pushed through government right now to make sure that open spaces, especially where you'd have a parade, will be better protected, and particularly against what we now recognize almost on a monthly basis is attacks, for whatever reason it might be, utilizing a vehicle.
Mm. And that's the problem, isn't it? You can understand why initially, within a very short period of time, information got out, because we have seen cars used as a weapon of choice in terror attacks. We've seen it all over Europe, in many areas, from France, Germany in particular, where this has happened. So it's little wonder that that was perhaps many people's go-to assessment of what was happening here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you. And I mean, it was one of the first things that I started considering, bearing in mind that you would hope that within the contingency planning for this event, that the authorities would have considered, as I would do. And I mean, I've done the risk assessment and manned the security of some very major events in the central parts of major cities. So I know for a fact that you will look at the widest spectrum of potential risks that could impact, and you look at what mitigation measures you want to put in place to ensure that those can't be realized. Now, in this instance, from what I understand, there was a cordon on Water Street, but again, as we saw with Manchester Arena, that the threat won't necessarily, and doesn't have to be a terrorist, the threat will try and target people when they're either entering or leaving, which is the most vulnerable points, if you like. So at the end of this parade, you had many of the supporters, many of the attendees, people going along to this thing, that would be leaving by various different routes. Now, the police, you know, we've got new mitigation measures, hostile vehicle mitigation measures that we're seeing pop up in various cities across the country, which could be anything from new street furniture, including concrete planters, to prevent this kind of attack taking place. But the police also, I know this, will use on cordons their own vehicles to block off streets. So how a vehicle was able to be driven into this street in the first instance, I would say, and this is my speculation, Ian, it's down to human error. Someone lifted it too quickly.
In terms of what the police did next, Will, which of course was not naming the suspect, they wouldn't be able to do that just yet, but certainly giving details of his age, his ethnicity and where he was from. This was largely as a response of accusations of shortcomings over Southport. And clearly the police thought, if we put this information out there, we can stop this escalating into something else. I guess the difficulty from a security perspective, as one of our texters just mentioned, does that mean they have to do this every time? And if the next time they don't mention the word white, what are people going to extrapolate from that?
Yeah, well, again, I think it's kind of redundant, Ian. I mean, there are white terrorists. You know, they don't have to come from a particular ethnic background. You know, you've got individuals that will follow an Islamic extremism agenda, for one example. You can have far-right extremists. You know, they don't have to. It doesn't have to necessarily be the colour of their skin. So I think it's a kind of a slightly tone deaf. I know that it's probably in the wake of Southport, but they got that horrendously wrong. I think where my big question, Ian, comes in is that they've discounted it and said this is not a terrorist event, and that might very well be the case. However, the general public isn't stupid, and the public need a more transparent understanding of why it's been discounted. Now, if I knew some of the inside track, Ian, I could look at it and I could probably make a fairly clear assessment and be able to give members of the general public a very clear idea as to why I'm not counting this as terrorism.
It's interesting, isn't it, as well? And again, in the world of misinformation, I think I've probably seen maybe a dozen different images of apparently the driver getting arrested. All different people, by the way. So these are different people where there were other arrests that took place. Clearly those that wanted to maybe get to the car, those that were just angry, we all understand that, and getting arrested as a result under a basic public order offence. But of course it doesn't stop people taking that clip saying, this is the driver, it doesn't look 53 to me, looks like 19. Well, that's because it's not him, mate. But everyone's an armchair journalist now.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, with social media, and you were saying a little earlier, Ian, about, you know, trying to dissuade viewers and listeners from seeking out some of the footage from the day yesterday, and particularly from this attack. And I would agree and concur with that, because, again, what is seen can never be unseen, and there's some pretty unpleasant footage out there. But having said that, you know, this information, you know, it's kind of useful in some ways, particularly for the police in their investigation. They'll be reviewing, no doubt, the CCTV in the local area, but they've also put out a call to the general public on social media to say, if you have any footage, please send it to us. And now we've got to understand that there is a legal process that has to follow now in terms of charging this individual and then a subsequent court case. But this information will be incredibly valuable. But like you rightly say, Ian, the problem is that everybody wants their little moment in the sunshine. And so they will put up anything as almost clickbait.
Indeed. Will, thank you for your time as ever. Very thorough stuff from Will Geddes, security specialist.